What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the SFS channel. My name is Gavin, and today I've got some more fantasy football lineup advice for you guys. I've got 5 wide receivers that I would sit in your fantasy lineups this week and avoid starting due to some stingy matchups. Before I get into today's episode, make sure you guys go down and like this video as well as subscribe to my channel. And let me know if you guys have any questions in the comment section down below. Anything fantasy football related, I'm happy to get back to you guys and answer all of your questions. I love helping you guys out and want to help you guys finish strong the rest of this season. So let me know. Let's hit the intro and get into my sits for week 10. All right, my first wide receiver that makes the sit list this week is Mike Evans, the Tampa Bay Bucks wide receiver. And Mike Evans has just simply been a very disappointing and frustrating fantasy option in 2020. I projected a little bit of a downfall for him this season from last year's numbers. I knew Jameis Winston wasn't there, so those down the field targets were not going to be the same, and his ceiling was not going to be quite as high. But I didn't expect the decrease in volume, production, and just overall usage in that offense to be such a dramatic decrease. Mike Evans has seen a statistical drop-off in almost every category in fantasy this season, and the only thing that was really holding his value up at the beginning of the year was those 1- and 2-yard touchdowns he was getting on the goal line. But now that Gronk has emerged in that offense, his touchdown value has went down even further. We're not seeing those explosive plays out of Evans, and his volume is very limited. And this week he's got Carolina, who is the number 6 ranked unit against the wide receiver in fantasy for 2020. The Panthers have been excellent this season and are very underrated by opposing fantasy players. I don't think people realize how good that unit has been against the pass and the amount of duds that they've put up against wide receivers they've faced. So Carolina, a matchup I am very much afraid of this week. I think Antonio Brown is another guy to be a little bit cautious about starting in your lineups this week because I think that those opportunities for big plays down the field are not going to be there. I expect this to be more of a ground and pound game for Tampa Bay. In the receiving aspect, I think Chris Godwin is the guy to look to in fantasy for week 10 because I expect those short intermediate routes to be where Tom Brady wants to go with the football. My next guy to sit here in week 10 is DJ Moore, the Panthers wideout against Tampa Bay. So 2 players from the same matchup here back to back on my list this week. And DJ Moore has just had some scheduling here riddled with difficult matchups. They've really hindered his production at points this season. And I think that continues one more week this week. But after this, it starts to lighten up and things start to look better for Moore going forward. But in week 10, Tampa Bay, the 10th ranked unit against wide receivers in fantasy this season to this point. And Teddy Bridgewater just seems to prefer Robbie Anderson right now. He's throwing the ball more to him every single game. He's getting more targets. And DJ Moore is kind of that home run hitter and that guy he looks to down the field for scores. So DJ Moore, not necessarily a volume play at all this season. He's more of that deep ball guy, like I said, and I expect him to have very minimal value this week unless he's able to hit one of those plays. Moore's very talented, but I think his floor is very shaky this week, and he could end up ruining your lineup. I wouldn't take the chance on him here in week 10, and I would wait until week 11 to start looking at him again for your lineups. Tyler Lockett's my next guy up here to put on your bench this week. I think he has a very shaky matchup. If you guys are playing against Tyler Lockett or are not an owner in your league, go out and buy low for him right now. His price is very down, and I think after another poor performance this week, he might have an even lowered stock. So Tyler Lockett, though, I think is going to struggle. Jalen Ramsey, obviously being on the other side of the ball, is a big issue for his production. I'm not 100% sure if Ramsey is going to shadow Metcalf or Lockett this week. I kind of expect him to play Lockett because of the style comparisons, and I think that DK Metcalf, they're just expecting him to go out and play bully ball. We've seen some very aggressive play from Jalen Ramsey this season, but I don't think he's up to par with the physicality that DK Metcalf brings to the table. So I think that shadow coverage for Lockett is very much in the question of play this week. And even if Metcalf is the guy that sees that shadow coverage, I still expect a tough performance from the Seattle Seahawks offensively this week. The Rams have just matched up really well against them the last 5 or so years. Even going back to the days when they were just a trash team under Jeff Fisher, they were still blowing out Seattle at times and just giving them a run for their money. I think that their weaker offensive line the past 5-6 years here since Marshawn Lynch departed has really been susceptible to Aaron Donald, and he has just blown through these guys. I mean, at points, they've had tight ends that they converted to left tackles starting for him, and he just blows those guys up and makes them look silly. So Aaron Donald, Michael Brockers, those guys up front for the Rams D-line are going to give the Seattle O-line fits, and they're going to cause Russell Wilson to be under heavy duress the whole game, and Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf will see a scoring dip as a result. Next up, we've got Adam Thielen traveling on the road to play Chicago this week, and the Bears are 100% a defensively inclined team. These guys get after it on that side of the ball. Khalil Mack, Roquan Smith, Eddie Jackson, Kyle Fuller, these guys have players all over the field that can make plays. And I think in cold weather games so far in his career, Adam Thielen has struggled a bit. His hamstrings tend to lock up on him, and Kirk Cousins doesn't like throwing the ball in that weather. I think they're going to try and keep pounding the ball with Dalvin Cook. But Justin Jefferson, if they end up throwing, is a guy I like much more in this matchup. Chicago does not use Kyle Fuller as a shadow corner. They keep him on one side of the field. But I think that Justin Jefferson, out of the slot or outside, has the better matchup this week. I think Adam Thielen has just struggled in his career against the Chicago Bears, and I think that his floor this week is very limited. He'll get some looks, yes, but I don't expect big production out of him this week. I think that you would much rather go with guys on the other side of the ball in this matchup like Allen Robinson or Darnell Mooney, who have much better matchups. So Adam Thielen, not a guy I'm crazy about this week. That cold weather, his injury issues in that type of weather, and the fact that the Bears are a very stout team defensively, and historically he has not been great against them in his career, make me want to sit him down on my bench in Week 10. Now, I have a very tough time saying that you guys should outright sit A.J. Brown this week, but his matchup is probably the worst case scenario that it could be all fantasy season long, and I think that this is a critical matchup to project what we can expect out of A.J. Brown down the stretch here in the fantasy season against tough matchups. A.J. Brown has the Colts this week, and as you guys know that have been watching the channel, those guys are very good defensively, and they make teams just grind drives out, and they do not let up the big play. Indy plays a very solid Tampa 2 defense, which basically has over-the-top coverage so they don't let you beat them deep, and they've got guys in the flats as well as covering the middle of the field, and that defensive front is very good, so it's tough to run the football against them, and when they get into pass rush situations, they get after it. And last week, the Bears got after Tennessee and sacked Ryan Tannehill and hit him a handful of times, which makes me very worried about Ryan Tannehill's ability to distribute the ball, especially to his favorite target, A.J. Brown. Brown is much more of a ceiling play than a floor player in fantasy, and I think we saw that last week when he went over 100 yards and had a touchdown on just 4 catches, I believe. The guy doesn't need very much volume to get to those nice numbers, but when he doesn't get those numbers, he's going to struggle. A.J. Brown's not the type of wide receiver that's going to go out there and catch 10 passes in a game. This is a 4 to 6 reception per game guy who breaks them away and gets long runs after catch and makes explosive plays happen with his legs and ability to make plays with the football in his hands. And if Indianapolis is simply willing to come up and tackle Brown this week, and if they hem him in and tackle him right at the point of catch, A.J. Brown is going to struggle mightily. They're going to have guys in position to do it. They just have to execute. And like I said, that defensive front of Indianapolis is very solid, and Ryan Tannehill likes to throw A.J. Brown the deep ball. So if he's not able to sit back in the pocket and get the ball out of his hands cleanly, and allow A.J. Brown to run underneath the ball and catch it, I think that heavy pressure in Tannehill's face is going to cause some turnovers. I think it's going to work heavily against that Titans offense and get them out of whack and doing things they don't want to do with the football. I just think this is a really risky game for A.J. Brown. Can he get his numbers still? Yes. This guy is a very good football player. He certainly has the talent to get it done, but this is the matchup of all matchups. This will prove if A.J. Brown is matchup proof or not. He's got Indy another game this season, I believe, and I think that this is going to be really telling for what to expect from him down the road. I love A.J. Brown. He's one of my top guys in fantasy this year, one of my favorite players in the NFL, but I think this is a matchup that can go horribly wrong in his fantasy production, so I'm really concerned about starting him in Week 10. If you guys have one of the other wide receivers that I put on my top 5 guys to start in Week 10, I would certainly put these guys in your lineup over A.J. Brown. I think he is a guy that struggles this week, or potentially struggles. I'm really nervous about A.J. Brown this week, and it's a risk I don't want to take, so I would avoid him if you can and look for another option this week. Those are my top 5 players to avoid in your lineups in Week 10 fantasy action. If you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, as well as turn that bell on so you guys are notified whenever I come out with a new video. I really appreciate all your guys' support, and if you have any questions, let me know down in the comment section, and I'll get back to you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next episode. Peace out.